The auction house was filled with the strange chatter of alien voices. Bright lights shined down on the center stage, where various beings were being sold off to the highest bidder. Some were criminals, others were political prisoners, but a few, like Lucas, were simply unlucky. Lucas sat on the cold floor inside a steel cage, his wrists bound with energy cuffs. His heart pounded as he watched one creature after another get dragged out and sold. Some buyers looked cruel, others indifferent. No one seemed to care about the fate of the ones being auctioned. A deep metallic voice echoed through the hall. "Next, we have a rare specimen. A human." The moment the word was spoken, the entire room fell silent. Then, whispers and murmurs spread like wildfire. "A human. They are nearly extinct. I thought their kind were too fragile for labor. Maybe as a pet for amusement." Lucas clenched his fists. He had no idea how he ended up here, but he refused to be treated like some kind of exotic animal. A massive alien with 6 arms stepped forward, inspecting him like livestock. Its sharp teeth glistened under the artificial lights. "I'll start the bid at 500 credits, it growled. Lucas's stomach turned. 500. That's it. More aliens joined in, their offers increasing. Some saw him as a curiosity, others as a potential servant. Then, a deep, powerful voice silenced them all. "I bid 10,000 credits." The entire hall turned to the source of the voice. Seated on an elevated throne-like chair was Queen Serena, ruler of the Zelthari Empire. Her dark violet skin shimmered under the lights. Her golden eyes glowed with authority. Every alien in the room lowered their heads in respect, or fear. 10,000. The auctioneer gulped. "Your Majesty, that is. An exceptionally high price for a human." Serena's eyes never left Lucas. "I am aware." No one dared to challenge her bid. No one could. With a wave of her hand, the deal was sealed. Lucas was dragged forward and forced to kneel before the queen. He expected her to be cruel or condescending, but instead, she simply examined him with cold, calculating eyes. "Strange," she murmured. "You don't look as weak as they say." Lucas gritted his teeth, refusing to answer. Serena's lips curled into the slightest smirk. "Take him to my ship," she ordered. "He belongs to me now." As Lucas was escorted away, the weight of his new reality sank in. He was no longer free. He was the property of an alien queen. But what did she truly want from him? Lucas sat in the corner of his new quarters, staring at the polished walls. The room was nothing like a prison cell. The bed was soft, the air smelled clean, and the lights adjusted to his comfort. It confused him. Why would a queen treat a slave like this? The door slid open with a quiet hiss. Lucas immediately stood up as Queen Serena entered the room. She wore a long, flowing robe that shimmered like liquid silver. Her golden eyes studied him carefully. "Are you afraid, human?" she asked. Lucas didn't answer. He didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing what he felt. She took a slow step forward, her presence filling the room. "I imagine you have many questions," she continued. "You may speak freely." Lucas clenched his jaw. "Why did you buy me?" Serena raised an eyebrow. "You are a rare species. Your kind is nearly extinct. So I'm just a trophy." A small smile played on her lips. "No, you are an experiment." Lucas stiffened. "An experiment." Serena walked over to a control panel and pressed a button. A large screen appeared, displaying data he couldn't understand. "The Zelthari race does not experience emotions as humans do," she explained. "We see emotions as weakness. Yet humans, you thrive because of them. Your species should not have survived, yet you did. That intrigues me." Lucas narrowed his eyes. "You bought me because you're curious." "Yes," she admitted. "I wish to understand humans, and I will start with you." Lucas took a step back. "I'm not some lab rat." Serena tilted her head. "You misunderstand, human. I do not need a test subject. I need a companion." Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. The word carried a deeper meaning. He wasn't sure if she meant a servant, a pet, or something else entirely. "I don't belong to you," he said firmly. Serena's eyes flashed with amusement. "But you do. You were bought at an auction. Your fate was sealed the moment I placed my bid." Lucas clenched his fists. "I won't be controlled." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, Sirena stepped even closer until she was just inches away. "Good," she whispered. "I do not want a broken human. I want one with fire." Lucas swallowed hard. This was a game to her, but he wasn't going to play along. He needed to find a way to escape. Serena turned to leave but stopped at the doorway. "Rest, Lucas. Tomorrow, your real test begins." Then she was gone, leaving him alone with one terrifying thought. What kind of test was she planning? Lucas woke up to the soft hum of the ship. He had barely slept. His mind kept replaying Sirena's words from the night before. "I do not want a broken human. I want one with fire." What did that even mean? Was she testing his spirit, his strength, or was this all some twisted game? The door slid open, and 2 armored Zelthari guards stepped inside. One of them tossed him a set of dark clothing. "The Queen awaits," the guard said. "Wear this." Lucas hesitated but knew refusing wouldn't help. The outfit was made of a strange, flexible material. It fit him perfectly, almost as if it had been designed for him. Moments later, he was escorted to a massive hall inside the Queen's palace aboard the ship. Golden banners hung from the walls, and alien nobles in elaborate clothing whispered as he passed. Their eyes were filled with either disgust or curiosity. At the far end of the hall, Serena sat on her throne, her golden eyes watching him with unreadable interest. "You look better in proper clothing," she said. "Come forward." Lucas stepped closer but kept his posture strong. He refused to bow. Serena smirked, still defiant. "Good." One of the nobles stepped forward, a tall reptilian alien with emerald green scales. "Your Majesty, why waste time on a human? He is fragile and inferior." Lucas clenched his fists. Serena's gaze didn't leave him. "Inferior," she repeated. She stood up and walked down the steps of her throne, stopping right in front of Lucas. "Tell me, human," she said softly, "if you are weak, then why have you survived when so many stronger species have perished?" Lucas met her gaze. "Because humans don't give up." A slow smile spread across Sirena's lips. She turned to the noble. "And that is why I chose him." The hall fell silent. Then, Sirena made a gesture, and the floor beneath them shifted. A holographic battlefield appeared, displaying 2 alien warriors locked in combat. "This is a simulation of our greatest warriors," Sirena explained. "They fight for honor, strength, and dominance. In Zelthari culture, only the strong survive." Lucas narrowed his eyes. "And what does this have to do with me?" Serena's golden gaze locked onto his. "I want to see how strong you truly are." The ground beneath Lucas shifted again, and suddenly, the battlefield became real. A hulking alien warrior materialized in front of him, its claws gleaming. Lucas barely had time to react before it lunged at him. The Queen's voice echoed through the hall. "Survive, human. Prove your worth to me." Lucas had no weapons, no armor, only his instincts, and the fight for his life had just begun. Lucas barely had time to think. The alien warrior charged at him like a beast, claws swiping through the air. He dove to the side, barely avoiding a killing blow. The crowd of alien nobles laughed. To them, he was just a human, a fragile creature that would break in seconds. But Lucas wasn't going to break. The warrior lunged again, but this time, Lucas was ready. He sidestepped at the last second, forcing the alien's momentum to work against it. The massive creature stumbled forward, crashing against the ground. The laughter in the hall stopped. Lucas took a deep breath. He had no weapons, no armor, but he had his mind. If brute force wouldn't work, He had to outthink his enemy. The warrior growled and stood up, now angry. It charged again, faster this time. Lucas looked around. There had to be a way to turn the fight in his favor. Then he saw it. The battlefield wasn't just a flat surface. It had small elevation points, energy walls that flickered in and out. Lucas waited for the right moment, then ran toward a rising platform. The warrior followed, claws ready to strike. Just as the alien swung its massive arm, Lucas jumped, using the platform to push himself higher. The warrior missed, its own strength causing it to slam into the wall behind him. There was a loud crack as the impact sent a shockwave through the room. Silence. Lucas landed, breathing heavily. The warrior wasn't moving. Slowly, he turned toward Queen Xerina. Her golden eyes were locked onto him, filled with something unreadable. Amusement, interest, admiration. Then she did something unexpected. She clapped. The nobles gasped. The queen never applauded anyone. Lucas didn't care. He was still angry. "I'm not your entertainment," he growled. "You wanted me to prove myself. Fine. Now tell me what you really want." Xerina's smirk widened. "You are as bold as you are clever, human." She stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. "I do not need another soldier. I have thousands of those." She lifted a single finger and touched his chest lightly. "What I need," she said, her voice softer now, "is someone different." Lucas tensed. "The way you fight, the way you think, it is not like my kind," she continued. "The Zelthari follow strength, but they lack something you humans possess. Fire." Lucas frowned. "Fire?" Xerina leaned in slightly. "The will to defy." His heartbeat quickened. Was this why she bought him? Not for power, not for amusement, but because she wanted something more. She took a step back. "This test was only the beginning," she said. "There will be more." Lucas stared at her, his fists still clenched. One thing was clear now. This was no ordinary queen, and he was no ordinary slave. Lucas sat alone in his quarters, his body aching from the fight. Every muscle burned, but he had won. He had survived. Yet he wasn't free. He still belonged to Queen Xerina. Her words echoed in his mind. "The way you fight, the way you think, it is not like my kind. The Zelthari lack something you humans possess. Fire." But why did that matter to her? What did she really want? The door slid open, and Xerina entered, moving with her usual grace. She wore a long, dark robe today, the golden patterns shimmering under the dim lights. "You look troubled, human." Lucas exhaled sharply. "Should I be grateful that I'm still alive?" Xerina smiled. "You should be proud. Few could do what you did today." He clenched his fists. "Why does it matter? You could have killed me any time." She tilted her head slightly. "That is true." Silence filled the room. Then she said something that made Lucas freeze. "But I don't want you dead." Her voice was softer now, less like a ruler and more personal. Lucas stared at her. "Then what do you want?" Xerina took a slow step forward, her golden eyes locked onto his. "I rule over the strongest empire in this galaxy. My people obey me without question. But none of them challenge me." Lucas didn't move. "I have thousands of warriors," she continued, "but none of them look me in the eye and dare to defy me." She was standing right in front of him now. "But you do," she whispered. Lucas swallowed hard. "So you bought me, because I won't bow." Xerina let out a soft chuckle. "It is more than that." She reached out, tracing a single finger down his chest. "There is something fascinating about humans," she murmured. "You do not just fight. You fight for something. You burn with passion. You make the impossible possible." Lucas tensed at her touch. Her presence was overwhelming, powerful, intoxicating, dangerous. But he wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Xerina leaned in slightly. "I wonder, will you burn for me, human?" Lucas exhaled. His heart was pounding, but not from fear. He met her gaze, refusing to look away. "I don't belong to you," he said firmly. Serena's smirk deepened. Instead of being offended, she looked amused, excited. "Perhaps not yet," she said. Then she turned and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, she paused. "Rest well, Lucas. The next test comes soon." The door closed behind her, leaving Lucas alone once again. But this time, something had changed. For the first time since his capture, he was starting to understand her. Lucas sat on the balcony of his quarters, staring at the stars. The Scifi warship drifted through space like a silent predator, its dark metal blending with the void. He wasn't in chains. He wasn't being tortured. But he was still not free. The door opened behind him. He didn't need to turn. He already knew who it was. Queen Serena. She walked beside him, silent for a moment, watching the same stars. "You have been quiet, human," she finally said. Lucas exhaled. "I've been thinking." She raised an eyebrow. "About escape?" Lucas smirked. "Maybe." Serena chuckled, a low, rich sound. "You are unlike any human I have ever known." He turned to face her. "How many humans have you known?" She met his gaze. "Only one." Lucas's breath hitched. The silence stretched between them. For the first time, she wasn't a queen, and he wasn't a slave. They were just two people. Finally, she spoke. "My people do not love," she said softly. "We take what we want. We rule. We conquer." Lucas swallowed hard. "And what do you want?" Serena stepped closer. "I want you." His heart pounded, but he didn't move away. She reached out, touching his face gently. "You challenge me. You defy me. You make me feel things I should not feel." Lucas searched her golden eyes. He saw no deception, no lies. Only truth. But truth was dangerous. "If your people find out, they already know." Lucas stiffened. "The Scifi Council sees you as a threat," she continued. "They whisper that I have become weak because of you." Lucas frowned. "Then why keep me here?" Her fingers curled around his wrist. "Because I do not care what they think." Lucas sucked in a breath. "They demand that I kill you to prove my strength." His stomach twisted. "And what did you tell them?" Serena's grip tightened. "I told them that if they touch you," her voice was deadly calm, "I will burn their worlds to ash." Lucas's pulse raced. No one had ever fought for him before. No one had ever chosen him over power. But Serena had. She wasn't lying. He could see it in her eyes. This wasn't just about ownership anymore. This was something else. Something that could change everything. For the first time, Lucas didn't feel trapped. For the first time, he realized. He didn't want to leave. Lucas stood on the grand balcony of Queen Serena's palace, overlooking the massive warship's capital chambers. Below, thousands of Scifi warriors and nobles gathered, their glowing eyes locked onto him. They weren't cheering. They weren't welcoming. They were watching, waiting for their queen's next move. Lucas had spent weeks trying to understand why Serena had chosen him. Now, standing beside her, he finally understood. This was never about slavery. This was about power, defiance, and change. Serena stepped forward, her regal presence undeniable. When she spoke, her voice carried across the vast chamber. "My people," she began, "you question my strength. You whisper that I have grown weak because of a human." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lucas held his breath. Serena's golden eyes flashed. "You believe I should have killed him, that I should cast him aside." Silence. She turned to Lucas, her gaze fierce. "But you are wrong." The room froze. Serena stepped closer, standing just inches from him. "This human," she said, her voice unwavering, "has fought. He has survived. He has defied me, challenged me, and proven that he is more than a slave." She paused. Then, her next words shattered everything. "He is my chosen consort." The room exploded in shock. Gasps, anger, disbelief. Lucas felt his pulse race. This wasn't just a declaration. It was a war against tradition. One of the Zelthari generals stepped forward, his expression furious. "A human? You would lower yourself too." Serena's hand shot out, and an invisible force slammed the general to the ground. "I lower myself for no one," she said coldly. Lucas watched in silent awe. This was the ex-Irina he had come to understand. A ruler who would not be controlled. A queen who would not kneel to tradition. She released the general and turned back to Lucas. "Do you accept this, human?" she asked. The question held weight. It wasn't an order. It wasn't a demand. It was a choice. For the first time since his capture, Lucas had control over his own fate. He took a deep breath. Then, looking directly into her golden eyes, he answered, "Yes." The room erupted, some in outrage, others in shock. But Serena only smiled. She took his hand, lifting it for all to see. "Then let them remember this day," she declared. "The day a human rose above kings, warriors, and empires." Lucas felt the weight of a new destiny settle upon him. He had entered this world as a slave. Now he stood beside a queen. And together, they would rewrite the stars.